Hi, good evening, everyone. It is Wednesday, May 11th. We're back for our last class in the series of Discovering Buddhism, Transforming Problems with Venerable Amy Miller. I'm glad you're all here. Before I turn things over to Venerable Amy, we do have one important announcement, which is happy birthday to Venerable Amy.
Oh my God, there's my cake, Carol.
Are we gonna sing? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, dear Venerable
Amy.
Happy
birthday to
you. And many more.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's very kind, especially with the melange of the people that are here. Really, some people very dear to me. So it's most of you. So thank you so much. It's lovely to see all of you. And that's only the second birthday song I had today. So, and with the cake makes it perfect topping for the day. Just perfect.
Well, I'm really glad you're here and working and teaching on your birthday. And thank you everyone for being here as well. So I personally try to take off on my birthday, but.
Well, I don't know. I don't really think of it as working when I'm teaching. It's kind of, and when Gina and I were trying to figure out the dates for the class, there's so many different things going on at centers, at both of our centers. So we were, and then, I realized it was May 11th and I was just like, well, what to do? A lot of times nuns or people that live alone don't really have anyone to celebrate with anyway. And I'd been kind of 15 years on the road. So it was a joke in my family because my sister is really into birthdays. And and every year she'd say, what are you doing for your birthday? And, I would be teaching at a center and the last thing I'm going to do is tell them it's my birthday because then they feel obligated to do something. So sometimes it's very self-absorbed. So I said, well, I'm not going to tell these centers. And so she didn't really understand for a while of what it was like to, and I was just happy to have the day to myself and I'd go, whatever city I was in, I just find something fun to do. And so what she did is one time I was in New York teaching and she contacted the center unbeknownst to me and sent money for like a cake and flowers. And I had no idea. And at the end, we were in person at Tibet House. And there were a lot of people. And then at the end, they said, oh, just a moment. And they came out and they all sang happy birthday, and I didn't tell anybody. And I was looking at them like, how do you know that? And then they said that my family had contacted them, which was very sweet. So, so thank you so much. That's really kind. Every day's our birthday, right? That's how I feel.
That's the way I approach it, but maybe for different reasons.
And the interesting thing, having Jeff here from Chicago, the way I met Jeff and his family many years ago, his brother shares my birthday. His brother, unfortunately, has passed away, which is actually part of how I met Jeff as well. And
I just talked to my mom and she said, make sure you tell Amy happy birthday.
I've got to call her. I
will never forget.
Yeah, because I always feel connected to your family because of that. So, so thank you to all the Taurians in the world. I salute you. Okay. Michael Burdick, welcome. So nice to see you here. Anyway, thank you all so much. And I'd like to really thank Chen Ling Center for hosting all this. Gina, Spiritual Program Coordinator Supreme. Carol, great director. Cindy's been helping with so many things, so I'm really grateful to all of you. And thank you to all of you for showing up. So let's talk about the 8 verses and how to change our mind and bodhicitta and emptiness and all these wonderful things. So take a moment right now. Let's just settle our motivation of, again, and motivation, I love this, that's so important in our path, is I get to direct my energy and my mind. Look at how distracted everybody is, right? And I know people, as soon as they wake up in the morning, all their multitude of lists are going off in their mind, like little eruptions and explosions. And you're never settled. There's always like so much happening. And when you get more scattered, then we lose our mindfulness, as you know. So I just find with the motivation, I can kind of take a moment. I'm directing this is how I want my mind to go. And even though the phone is binging and this is happening and somebody's talking to you and your mind's got, it's 19 communities in it, right? Talking, saying different things. You're taking that moment to set the motivation. So just close your eyes for a moment. And how often during the day, some people don't get to this every day, I understand. To just have a moment of stillness. As you lightly close your eyes, just begin to deepen your respiration. Feel free to adjust your posture in any way that makes it more comfortable. You may want to imagine as you inhale, bringing in any positive quality. You might want to inhale joy. Feel it moving through your body and mind. As you exhale, desperation. You might inhale positivity. Exhaling frustration. Put it into your own words, bringing in enhancing qualities. You may have the good qualities, letting go of what is no longer necessary. And allow the mind now to rest on the breath. Just a normal, natural breath. It's a great settling space for the mind. And instead of working to keep your mind focused on the breath right now, I really like sometimes when I only have 5 minutes. What normally happens is we might want to focus on something. In this instance, the breath. We stay on the breath for a moment. Mind pops off, goes off after a thought, a distraction. So instead of trying to meditate, instead of questioning, am I meditating? Or squeezing to try to focus on the breath, to try to bring some clarity. See if you can let go of all that and just allow yourself to be in meditation. Thoughts will bubble up. I don't need to place any more importance on one or the other. Let them go. Finding the mind in its natural state. And from here, think about the information you've been getting in this class. If it benefits your mind, if it benefits your practice, can you fold it into your practice to move you along that path? Or you can have an unlimited capacity for helping all living beings. Like the biggest wish you could make. Just reflect on that, and if that interests you, feel free to include it in your motivation right now. Just taking a moment. This is you directing your energy and your mind in the most positive way. Take a moment to set that motivation for our time together now and all the activities of the rest of your day. So please relax. And Gina, if we can bring up the Refuge Prayer, please. We can just recite this together. Just adding to the motivation. Thank you so much. Really thinking about the words again. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. O Sangye Jodan Zoki Jonam La Janchu Bardu Degi Gyap Suchi Dagi Chin Yingi Peso Namgi Drola Pincher Sangye Druparjo. Thank you. Okay, a few things I wanted to review. We went through, we're going to do the last verse 8 tonight. And just as a review, we went through 6 and 7 last week. Let me just reference 6 and 7. We are going to read them all in this meditation we're going to do a little later. So just remembering number 6, when someone whom I have benefited and in whom I have great hopes gives me terrible harm, I shall regard that person as my holy guru. So just reflecting on the preciousness of gleaning messages and lessons, transforming that again. You know, that somebody we have expectation because we help them. They don't pay it back, they harm us. The normal way society deals with it is to get back at them, to hate them, to trash them, to talk about them to others negatively. Again, there's a message in there for you if we don't proceed that way. This is turning your mind upside down. Mind training is turning your mind upside down, but in a positive way, not to lend confusion that your mind's upside down, but to totally transform your thinking. This is where you will glean happiness. Verse 7, in short, both directly and indirectly, do I offer every happiness and benefit to all my mothers. I shall secretly take upon myself all their harmful actions and suffering. This is Tonglen, the basis of Tonglen meditation that we've done a couple times in this course, giving and taking. But the first thing, we're taking the suffering. And when you have a wish to relieve others of suffering, that's the essence of compassion. When you have a wish to give others happiness, that's the essence of love. That's a distinction between love and compassion. So we talked about that and did some Tonglen meditation, which I find to be enormously helpful. And a lot of people ask me, you know, what do you think about the war in Ukraine and overturning Roe versus Wade and all the negative stuff, all the conflicts in the world and all the you know, opioid deaths, you could say inner city gun violence. You know, there's a lot of problems, global warming, right? The very basis of what I can do is Tonglen, you know, on an internal level to dismantle, okay, my internal mechanisms that create hostility in my mind, that create attachment in my mind, pride, jealousy, fear, anxiety, depression. Okay, you get the idea, delusion. I have to work internally on my mind. Okay, mind training is just one of the ways that we work on it. Mind training being part of the higher scope, the highest scope of our Lamrim practice. So again, I mentioned a scope for lower capable being, a scope for medium capable being. Based on those motivations, I then come into wanting to develop the good heart of bodhicitta. So all 7 of those verses that we've gone through are dealing with that attitude, that what Lama Yeshe would call totality heart, totally open heart. I had the good fortune many times to meet His Holiness the Dalai Lama, a couple times with one time just me for half an hour and another time with one other person. And you know, you wait a long time and there's a security screening and your passport. And I mean, you know, it takes a while. And first, even to get the appointment was a huge screening process and you need a good reason. And I was asked by Lama Zopa Rinpoche to do this project, to help with this project. And because I didn't just want to ask His Holiness for a visit and waste his time, right? Just because I wanted to see His Holiness, you know, he's got a lot of other things on his plate, right? But fortunately, something came together many years ago, and I got this appointment in Dharamsala, and you're waiting, and there's other people waiting for an appointment. And then I got very nervous because he's like a pure mirror. When you're around somebody with that kind of space of mind, breadth of heart, unbelievable. And I saw many people that had seen His Holiness in the past, of friends of mine that had an interview about something or other. And you're transported by being around somebody that pure. And you don't need to be Buddhist to be that pure, as you know. Many, many incredibly beneficial people on the planet, whether it was Gandhi or Martin Luther King Jr. or Mother Teresa. There's many, many people like that on the planet. That and if you get a chance to be around some of them, some of you know people like that, I'm sure, like that. So the one thing that I was so impressed with this meeting was, and I'd seen teachings with His Holiness before, but to be with this up, is he had no, it was just spacious mind heart experience was my experience. He had no walls up. You know how we have kind of things like we're a little afraid of this person, and then somebody says, oh, my car was broken into last night, and you have a little shutdown of the heart of like, oh, where do you live? Where did you park your car? Did you lock your car? Did you, or somebody's dog might be barking and come out and growl at you, and you get scared about it. And we have all these things going on, and people we don't feel safe with. People have histories of abuse and all kinds of things, or people are waiting in the doctor's office for their diagnosis, and the heart constricts because they're afraid. So we understand. His Holiness, the experience I had with my limited knowledge was this totality heart. So we can develop that. And that's what those 7 verses are really geared to. Bodhicitta, again, which I've spent a lot of time talking about. And so, and this last verse we're going to talk about tonight talks about emptiness, okay? And the 8 worldly dharmas. So let me read this verse. Undefiled by the stains of the superstitions of the 8 worldly concerns, may I, by perceiving all phenomena as illusory, be released from the bondage of attachment. And the other interesting thing I remembered meeting His Holiness was, I think I met him in the afternoon. It was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon meeting. And the rest of the day I wasn't walking on air. And I've seen many people zapped by that kind of purity of presence in a good way, It's a little bit like it does something to your cells in a good way. So imagine if we can get enlightened, imagine if we develop more bodhicitta, have that bigger open space of heart. But as we develop realizations and as we develop our wisdom, so bodhicitta, having that doesn't mean you're a doormat, and it doesn't mean I should cherish others more than myself. So why don't I take every street person into my house? Okay, that's not using your wisdom like that. So again, with the wisdom, you're combining it with the wisdom, and then it's incredibly beneficial. And you derive all your happiness from both of those experiences using the good totality heart with your wisdom. Okay. So, and so it's very pleasant for people to be around. People are very attracted to that. They want to be around that. It also subdues people. And one experience I had with Lama Zopa Rinpoche in Tibet many years ago, we were warned when we went overland to Lhasa from Nepal. There was a group of 60 of Rinpoche's disciples at that time that went with different buses and different groupings, and everybody met in Lhasa, and then Rinpoche took us on all these outings every day like that. And so we were warned about the dogs, and the dogs were kind of mastiff size, good sized dogs. They lived outside. They were kind of wild, but people fed them, but Tibetans didn't treat them very well, which you say, why is that? They're Buddhists. Why wouldn't they? It was just cultural, how they, so the dogs were quite vicious. And I met people that were bit by these dogs and had to go back to Kathmandu for rabies shots and never got to Lhasa. And, I'd hear different stories. So we had a lot of fear about the dogs, and they said, don't go out at night alone and carry a big stick and go out with a group, or just don't go out at night. And so I remember Lama Zopa Rinpoche at one point getting off our group bus. We had 2 large buses of all these people, and he came down at this monastery, and then there were 4 dogs that greeted him getting off the bus. And, and everybody's like, oh, Rinpoche, the dogs. And I saw Rinpoche put his hand down to them, and they were there sniffing and wagging their tails. because he had no fear. So if you can really come from that pure space of heart, it also dismantles other people's agitations and fears and delusions to some degree. And you know what it's like when you're around more relaxed people as opposed to people who are more uptight. So let's think about verse 8. Undefiled by the stains of the superstitions of the 8 worldly concerns, may I, by perceiving all phenomena as illusory, be released from the bondage of attachment. 8 worldly concerns, again, I'm just going to ask you, so feel free if you want to unmute for a moment. What are the 8 worldly concerns? Anybody?
Pleasure and pain.
Yeah, so the one, and there are 4 pairs of things that manipulate us, okay? Pain and pleasure, thank you, Michael. And literally in Tibetan, they'll say, being happy when you feel pleasure and being unhappy when you feel pain. Pain and pleasure, thank you. Number 2, second pair. Anybody recall?
Gain and loss.
Gain and loss, thank you, Gina. Being happy when you get something, being unhappy when you don't get something or you lose something. Number 3.
Praise and scorn.
Praise and scorn or praise and blame. So being happy, and the way it's literally mentioned, being happy when you hear pleasant sounds about yourself. Being unhappy when you hear unpleasant sounds. Praise and blame. Yep. And the last is fame and dishonor. Having a good reputation and having a bad reputation. That. So Geshe Zopa, who taught at University of Wisconsin for years, one of my gurus, one of a few of us here, our guru, he passed away now. He said that was the worst pair, the bad reputation. Like we think that we really have trouble with pain. And I know somebody here who's experiencing a tremendous amount of pain right now that, you know, and we think that's really the worst, but when people think negative things about you, but please, you check your mind. You have to check your mind and really explore. So what the main thing we want to do is counteract these 8 worldly dharmas, concern for this life we're manipulated through these things constantly. Okay. So by rising to the occasion and getting beyond that, we're the mind more subdued. We're so much happier. So much happier. How do we do it? Okay. By realizing emptiness. By realizing emptiness. Okay, so let's explore this. I just want to, and some of you are familiar with this teaching, but I just want to bring you emptiness in a sense. Let me just add a couple things I wanted to still say about bodhicitta. Okay. Okay, here we go. A couple last things I want to say. We can always have more classes, of course, on bodhicitta. It's the crux of the Mahayana tradition. Bodhisattvas are very relaxed and happy. So again, think about that mindset, that you're doing your work in a relaxed, happy way for living beings. First, we do it with you know, not a level of bodhicitta, but we're working on it. Okay. Again, it's contrived. We think about something called the 7-point cause and effect method to develop bodhicitta, or the secret method. There's 2 main methods again in our tradition: equalizing and exchanging self with others. And you move along your path as best as possible. So for instance, you might be working with equanimity, the basis of those 2 methods at some point, trying to have equal regard for all people, you know, all beings as much as possible. I'm not so much differentiating between the CEO at my company and the homeless guy on the street. When I come out on the street, is I realize they're in different positions in life, but I can still have equal respect, equal regard like that. Again, you know, you want to single out Putin and make him the great evil, but again, he's just as bumbling along like we are, confused. Sure, he runs a big country and as a result has a lot of power and decides he wants to invade another country and make a mess of things like that. Well, that comes from more confusion like that, but I can still hold him in my heart in a decent, compassionate space, right? Which makes me more peaceful than hating him. Okay. So we kind of, bodhisattvas, and they're also not advertising how great they are by the path that they're on. They're not telling everybody what they're doing for everybody else. They do their practice in secret, in a sense. They do their practice without pride. There's a lot of people on the planet like that. They're just going about their secret business like that. I don't know how many of you read Somerset Maugham. This is an old book, The Razor's Edge. Anybody read this book? It's a great book. They made a movie. They made a couple movies about it. Anyway, it's a great book. Read the book. I really like that book. And there's a guy in it. And I think the book was set like originally in the 1920s to modern day, like 40s and 50s. But it was based on a real character, apparently, a guy who was supposed to be a stockbroker in Illinois. And whatever it was, he had some kind of karmic seed and really wanted to go explore the world and find an end to suffering. Like there was something going on in him, and he explored a bunch of different vocations and was in Europe. He went to India. It's very interesting, but who it was based on, they said he ended up coming back to New York and becoming a taxi driver. Something that I read of somebody that Somerset Maugham knew. How true is that? I don't know, but I love talking to the taxi drivers in Manhattan and other cities. I mean, some of them, they're just great, driving around. Now we have Uber drivers and Lyft drivers, and there's people, but a lot of people get in the car and they never talk to these people. They're people just like you and me. That's their job. And they're some really nice people I've met. I've had some great connections with people giving me lifts places, to strangers that I don't know, if you just engage them. So think about the knowledge he could give out. And what's really interesting is my brother, when we were growing up, there was a family we knew, and they had 3 kids. We had 3 kids, but one of them was my brother's age, and he was super, super bright, but he didn't fit in socially in school. And I think he went to like a really good Ivy League school and dropped out after his first or second year, and kind of went along and had a vocation. And my brother ran into his mother some years ago and asked about him. And she said he's driving a taxi in the Philadelphia area. And then the mother stopped thinking about the judgment of, oh, he was so brilliant, but he's like that's a negative. He's driving a taxi. And then the mother looked at my brother. My brother told me this story distinctly. And she goes, I think he's helping a lot of people. And my brother said it kind of went right through him, the word, like that he was special. And like he just chose to do it like that. So that's what bodhisattvas do. They might masquerade as a taxi driver. We might go, oh, they're just a taxi driver, but they could be an enlightened being. That you never know. Never know. So the nice thing is, just as they say from Neem Karoli Baba, this incredible Hindu saint who see God in everything. Why not see the best in everybody? And I really believe in that fundamental goodness in all beings, even terrorists, Putin, whomever, people that are confused, but I really think that fundamental goodness is there. And it keeps my mind also in a brighter place, not in a pie in the sky, naive way. I'm not going to put myself in danger with some of these people. And if they're doing things that may be incredibly harmful, I prefer to think they're just suffering under more confusion like that. And we all get confused at times. Let's talk about how we dismantle this confusion. Oops. And a little bit more about, again, bodhicitta is the antidote to self-cherishing, and exactly how the giving and taking practice works like that, to destroy the self-cherishing. You're not harming yourself, you're destroying that self-cherishing knot at your core, okay? So when we are doing the giving, it's without an attitude of what am I gonna get in return, okay? I'm just want people to be happy the way people feel about their kids, like that. So we're training to broaden our cherishing of others, okay? And you're not training to destroy your self-care. So people get that mistaken. If I'm a bodhisattva, if I'm on the bodhisattva path, and I live with an alcoholic, Well, they want to drink, so I should let them drink because that's good for them, right? No. Okay, that destroys your self-care. Okay, you become an enabler, you become a codependent, enabling somebody to continue to harm themselves. That's not what bodhisattvas do. So they practice tough love at times. They practice whatever's most appropriate in any given situation, because on the side, they're developing their wisdom, okay? So we're also making care for each other equal to the care we need for ourselves in order to do that work. So it's really, really important. Okay, so let's talk about emptiness. I'm going to use a teaching whoops, come back, here we go. Teaching from, I want to talk about emptiness through the teaching on the pen. The pen, okay? Some of you have heard this teaching before. Okay. Conventionally, we have an idea about this object I'm holding in my hand, meaning we have an agreement. We have an agreement. According to people from our part of the country, our part of the world, with our language, when I hold this up, okay, I believe most of you would view it as a pen, correct? Anybody see it as something different? Okay, we're all there. This is a pen. Conventionally, there's a conventional truth, also called relative truth. Then there's an ultimate truth. The two truths, conventional truth, ultimate truth, or absolute truth. Okay, conventional truth, this is a pen. There's a pen there, okay? And what emptiness asks you to do is analyze how the pen exists. And I'm going to explain why do we want to do that. Okay, but analyze how the pen exists. We've talked about this a little bit in earlier sessions. So we're going to go a little more deeply, because along developing my good heart, I have developed wisdom, the view. And those are the two wings of the bird that fly us to enlightenment. We need both of them, like that. So I have a pen. So there's three different ways the pen exists as what's called a dependent arising, okay? Dependent, it arises in dependence on other things, okay? And what happens is the way my mind with ignorance takes in the pen is it doesn't really see any dependence on anything else. It sees a concretely existing pen there for all time. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, okay? But the pen actually exists based on three ideas, three types of dependent arising. Number one, causes and conditions. What does that mean? Well, it means that in ancient days, people started recording their history with minerals on cave walls. Okay, that's a condition that starts to get some writing implement developed. We want to fast forward. Then they develop a material called ink, and they develop something to dip in the ink that will write on paper or write on something. Okay, now we fast forward and plastic's invented. And somebody has a notion, I'm going to make money and I'm going to mass produce plastic pens like this. Everybody with me? That's a cause. These are the causes and conditions of how this pen got here. It's pretty basic. Okay, that's number one. Number two is the way the pen comes into existence is based on its parts, by depending on its parts, or I'll say independence, independence on its parts, by depending on its parts. Well, let's look at the parts of the pen. I think they're pretty clear, okay? This is a basic big pen. It's got the cap. It's got this little metal thing here, okay? It's got this little bottom plastic piece here. I might even, this is arbitrary, but might say this is the top of the pen. That's a part. This is the bottom of the pen. This is the side of the pen. There's an inside of the pen, obviously. There's an outside of the pen, okay? There's an ink cartridge in the middle of the pen. There's ink in the ink cartridge. So I think we're pretty clear. And then there's plastic molecules that make up the plastic. These are all the parts of the pen. Okay, so what happens is if you analyze, I want you to analyze the parts for a second. Okay, is this pen to anybody? No? Okay, what if I took this little, metal piece off? Is that pen? No, it's not pen. What if I took the ink cartridge out and held it up? Is that pen? Okay, no, some people wait. What if I took this little plastic piece out? Is that pen? And what if I just took the plastic cylinder and held it up for you. Is that pen? No. Okay, people are shaking their heads. No. Okay. So I'm giving you a rough view of the parts of the pen. And right now, so far, we haven't found pen in any of those parts, correct? And feel free to debate me if you want. Okay, but so far, we haven't found pen in any of the parts of the pen. Then people say to me, okay, but when you put all the parts together, there's a pen there. Okay, so wait a minute, let's go back. We just checked all the parts. There was no pen in any of the parts. How can you possibly put all the parts together where there is no pen, we just checked, and say there's a pen there? Okay, here's what happens according to the highest school. Madhyamaka Prasangika says what happens is what appears to our consciousness is a valid basis that can be designated pen, that can be labeled pen. These are all synonyms: designation, label, okay? There's a valid basis of designation that we can call pen. And the valid basis of designation appears to our consciousness. Okay, and in this case, I'm gonna go this far and say, just think about this valid basis of designation for a moment. A plastic cylindrical tube filled with ink that writes. And I want you to see this for a moment. What I'm holding in my hand right now is a plastic cylindrical tube filled with ink that writes. It's a little different than pen, isn't it? Sometimes when we think about it and we look at the penness and all that, but then you go back to the basis of designation, valid basis of designation. You have to be very careful with your terminology, very clear with your terminology, a valid basis of designation, okay? This is not a valid basis of designation for pen, because this is a cup, okay? So I've got this kind of contraption going on, and then what happens, there's a labeling process. The mind merely labels pen on this valid basis of designation. The mind labels again on this. So there's a gap, okay? First to my consciousness comes an inherently existent pen. That's how it appears, okay? But on one level, what really appears first is a valid basis of designation. Then there's a gap of the labeling process. My ignorance covers over the gap, okay? And then my mind labels, instantaneously labels pen on this valid basis of designation. My mind merely labels pen there, okay? But what appears to my consciousness due to my ignorance is an inherently existent pen. And what inherently existent means, it's, I'm going to give you synonyms, concretely existing. It has intrinsic value. It exists independent of any parts or causes and conditions. It's an unchanging thing. It exists independent of itself, with its own character from its own side. These are all synonyms for inherent existence, okay? So number one mistake is, due to my ignorance, is an inherently existent pen appears to my consciousness. Now that's not the only problem. The real problem is an inherently existent pen appears to my consciousness. And here's the next step, next serious problem. My pen. That's when all the suffering starts. My pen. The real problem is you have a mistaken notion of how you exist, how yourself exists, okay? So here comes the self-grasping. I have a mistaken notion due to my ignorance covering over the gap of me labeling, merely labeling by the mind, David on your body and mind, Liesel on your body and mind, Gina on your body and mind, Ross on your body and mind, okay? Constantly being labeled like that. And then suddenly Ross appears inherently existent due to my ignorance, okay? And then I grasp onto that. And then the self-cherishing arises from there. So that's how you have self-grasping arising with self-cherishing. And that's the source of all your suffering, those two things. And it sounds really simple, but I know it's not. So what we need to do is start to study emptiness in classroom time. Read simpler books on emptiness. Then go to the more advanced books. Read passages of books on emptiness, because some of the Lam Rim books, there's just a shorter segment on emptiness. Read it until you understand it and ask questions of people that really understand intellectually what's going on to explain it accurately to you. Okay, and then you want to learn how to effectively meditate on emptiness. So I would recommend to start, some of you are well into this, so no problem. If you're newer, I really like Venerable Sangye Kadra's book, How to Meditate. Just a basic, wonderful meditation guide. It's written in her English name, Kathleen McDonald, in her American name. She's our longest, one of our longest nuns in our tradition. She's a dear friend of mine, Kathleen McDonald. Wisdom Publications has, you can easily search online. Amazon probably has it, How to Meditate. The emptiness meditation in there, super easy to follow. It's great. And you just slowly, over and over, kind of soak your mind, because what happens is when I said to you last week, see everything as a product. That's what you do in your break times with emptiness. Meaning I'm noticing that everything comes from something else. Everything comes from something else. I might even look right now look at the floor in your room. Well, the floor holds up all your furniture. It seems pretty substantial. But just check it out, because you might have a wooden floor. You might have linoleum or carpeting or laminate, right? And that, that's made up of particles, molecules, maybe planks of wood, pieces of linoleum, pieces of tile. The carpet's made up of all these fibers, put together, woven together in a certain way, whether hand done, whether by machine, right? There's nothing concretely existing, solidly existing carpetness. When you try to find the carpetness, the floorness of the floor, it all exists as parts coming from other things. Everything does. Look around, look at your room right now, look around at the walls, and is there anything that just exists in and of itself? And is any of that stuff not changing? Is any of it not changing? Do you see anything that's, now the walls will look solid, I understand. Are they not changing right now? We know molecules are moving around, right? So what you want to do is just poke it in your everyday life. And I'll give you an example. You're at a meeting, and so you go, well, how does this relate to, you're in a business meeting. This happens to all of us. You work with somebody irritating, right? Does anybody work with anyone irritating? Hello, right? There will, there's always some irritating person that happens to waltz through our life at some point. Some of them we're related to, some of them we work with. Some, it's a neighbor, it's somebody. It could just be the guy in the next car over there who's driving like a jerk. But these people come up every day. Do you want to go around in a stew all the time? This is where emptiness helps. So you notice first your irritation, that's okay. You notice, but I'm not going to act on it. Years ago, you might have acted on it. As kids in the sandbox punch the other kid. Some kids do that. Or they crush into themselves and get fearful and start sobbing in the corner of the sandbox. Okay, well, now we're beyond that. But adults do more things. They invade Ukraine. That's one way they respond, unfortunately, due to having this inflated notion about how they exist. It's too bad, okay? So basically, we need to poke at it in everyday life. You're at a meeting with somebody and they're really irritating you right now. They're fighting for their budget. They think this program's better. They want to do it. All the old habits, whatever's going on. Okay. And you can just sit there calmly, notice bubbles of irritation come up. Okay. I'm just noticing that. I might have a little humor to myself in the back of my mind. I'll say, I might be smiling at them, listening. I have a little voice that says, Amy, do not open your mouth right now. Okay. No problem. Hang with that. And then you can start saying, let's analyze that, the person who's, you might call them the jerk at work, right? Okay, let's analyze. Let's analyze them. We have to understand how karma and emptiness works together to get us free of this slowly. And it takes time, it takes lifetimes, but we can do it. Okay, so you've got this person in your life. Just Think about them for a moment. Somebody irritating, somebody that's a little challenging. Okay. We want to analyze, how do they exist? Okay. Let's break it down to the raw data that's there. You got a fleshy oblong thing here. Okay. That's called the head, by the way. Okay. I've got a lot, and sometimes it's covered with material, not in my case. Okay. But sometimes you got a material up here called hair. You got these two circles of color. Okay. And then you have this hole, another orifice. Okay. And sound comes out of this. That's it. That's the bare. Okay. You got a longer torso and you got 4 appendages. There's your person. This is often covered in a material. Let's certainly hope in a work situation. Okay. There's your person. And what's so interesting, and I loved this when I was first getting into Buddhism, and you get irritated with somebody. I was working in an office with 30 people, and some people, I'd hear people yelling at each other and different things. And then let's say you have a boss you don't like. Let's say there's a coworker you don't like. When they open this, when this hole opens, whatever comes out there, you tend to engage with it in a negative way. Whatever they say, you don't like. You somehow have a way of turning it in your mind into something you don't like. Okay. But isn't it fascinating how there's somebody in your office that thinks whatever they say is just great? And they'll say, they're amazing, how wonderful. They're, it's so interesting. So then you have to question to yourself, are they inherently evil? Are they inherently irritating? Because if they were inherently irritating, this is the way inherent existence is, everybody has to see them that way. That's what inherent existence is. In a sense, frozen in time and space, inherent existence. That's what it means. That's what it's like. You're always like that. No ability to change either. Thing is always like that. Okay. So that's so you have to keep posing, like even Putin. I think about how his kids think about him, how his buddies think about him. They love him. So there's always a different view, but my view based on my karma, and that means past activities I've done with my body, speech, and mind, creates me to experience my reality in a certain way. And that projects things on that reality. Putin, negative. A bowl of roses, positive, But I know somebody here that doesn't really like the smell of roses. So they see a bowl of roses and they may be like, not so great. I see a bowl of roses and I'm like, wow, that's great. Again, you see, if I say here, how many of you like tomatoes? Put your hand up. How many like tomatoes? Anybody here not like tomatoes? Okay, I'm not overly fond. I eat them sometimes. So is it the tomato? Me and Cindy have a different opinion about tomatoes. Tomato? No, it's not. It's your view. So what kind of reality would you like to project on the movie screen of your life? That's what you have to think about. I would like mine to be really happy, really fulfilling, brilliant, glorious, wonderful. How do I do it? I have to create the cause. I have to take care of my mind by transforming my mind. That's what these 8 verses are about. That's what this last verse is about, is get emptiness, see emptiness directly. And then you enter the path of seeing. And then, so let me explain the 5 paths based on this. And then I'll take some questions. 5 paths, okay? Number 1, path of accumulation. 5 paths to enlightenment, the path of accumulation. And what that means is you are creating, preparing and accumulating the conditions you need to move along that path clearly. You're accumulating the conditions. So what you might be doing is, in our tradition, we have purification practices and what we might call preliminary practices. And you're reciting a number of mantras, you're reciting sutras maybe, and doing a variety of practices. Some of you remember when I was making tsatsas, these Buddha images, plaster Buddha images. That's a nundra. That's one of our preliminary practices that has an effect on my mind by making them with a good motivation in the proper way. And all these practices have an effect on your mind. Being kind to somebody has a very positive effect on your mind. Being generous has a very positive effect on your mind. Meditating on emptiness has a very positive effect on your mind. So there's many ways we create that purification, cleaning out really negative habits in our mind, and accumulating the positive conditions. Okay, so that's a lot of that path of accumulation that takes a long time in our life, like that. And what they really say is, to get on that path is you need proper renunciation. That you need proper renunciation. Okay, so I mentioned renunciation before is really giving up whatever disturbs your mind. But the more traditional view is striving day and night to get out of samsara, get out of that suffering cycle. Okay, so what's interesting is a lot of us feel like we're on the path of accumulation, but you really have to look at your renunciation. I remember doing a longer retreat at Vajrapani many years ago. And when I came out of this, it was like 7 months, and the community wanted to have dinner and meet with me and ask how the retreat went. So we got together, and they said, so did you have any insights? You know, anything special happen? And I thought about it for a long time. And then I said, I think what I came out with first was, I realized that I'm not even on the path. Right. So you're trying to be clear, but again, we are trying to accumulate merit and purify negativities, path of accumulation. Number 2, path of preparation. Path of preparation. What this is about, you're preparing to see emptiness directly. So this is how important emptiness is. The Buddha gave 84,000 discourses, all to get us to realize emptiness. That's how important it is. Okay. So this view. So path of preparation, what you're doing is more meditation on emptiness. Maybe you're serving your teacher directly, or in some way, in some capacity, doing it really well. Serving living beings, helping a center. Maybe you're a monk and nun, don't necessarily need to be, right? And you're doing a lot of emptiness meditation, study on emptiness, courses on emptiness, over and over, to prepare to see emptiness directly, because you see emptiness directly in meditation on emptiness, okay? Then you come to the path of seeing. And I think they'll often say, in order to enter the path of seeing, but on the path of preparation, you're purifying and you're attaining shine. Shine is a Tibetan word for calm abiding. Calm abiding is what we think of as most meditation, single point of concentration. Okay, and there's 9 stages to reach shine, or calm abiding, when you can hold your mind on an object, whatever object you choose to focus on in meditation, which could be visual, it could be a concept like emptiness through analysis, right? And you can hold your mind on that for 4 hours unwaveringly. That's when you've attained shine. And when you've attained shine, you have an incredibly pliant mind with an enormous amount of bliss, flexibility in the mind, and you can hold your mind in concentration on something. And the reason you need shine to get onto the path of seeing is you need, in meditation, to focus your mind on the emptiness until you have a direct perception of it, okay? When you have a direct perception of emptiness in meditation, you enter the path of seeing, and that's when you see emptiness directly, okay? And what I'm talking about as emptiness is a lack of inherent nature. It's an object has an absence of that. This pen lacks any inherent nature, any concrete penness that doesn't change, that exists independent of its parts, independent of causes and conditions. The pen simply does not exist that way. Okay, but due to our fundamental ignorance, we impute that on the pen all the time, and we impute it on ourselves. So what I'm saying, when the pen is empty of that view, okay, it means it lacks that, it's absent of that. It doesn't have inherent nature. That's what emptiness means in Tibetan Buddhism, what I'm talking about. Not that the cup's half full. I mean, it lacks inherent nature. It lacks concrete existence. It lacks this ability to not change. Doesn't have that. Doesn't have that. But that's not the way it appears to us. That's not the way it appears to us. Okay. And a pen is a mundane object. But what about your car, for instance? Think of cars a little bit more concrete. I know one of you mentioned you got a great electric car. Super, I'm very happy. That's the way we all need to go. Now you got this car, probably costs a little bit of money, okay? You're in a parking lot. You're coming back to your car from the shop, okay? Walking back to your car, and you see somebody park next to you and just open their door into your car. How do you respond? Anybody? How's that going for you? It's okay? David and Lisa are like, no, it's not okay. Okay. For a lot of people, it's not okay. I've actually witnessed one time somebody running over to the person that opened the door into the car and go, hey, you know, I've seen that. Like, what are you doing? Why? Because that's my car. Hey, that's my car. You just open your door into my car. Let's diffuse a little bit. What I like to do sometimes is talk about the car I drive rather than my car. A little less territorialness. Little, you know, this is the cabin in which I stay, the cabin where I live, rather than my cabin, my house, my room, my cup, my pen. Okay, so kind of, again, it's all fluid. Now, it doesn't mean you don't take care of your car. It doesn't mean you might not go over and have a conversation with the person about the dent they made in the car. But again, it's how we want to do it, with compassion. Okay, and you want to recognize the reason they opened their door into the car. Number one, they probably didn't intend to do it. Okay. Number two, have you ever done that to somebody else's car? I have. I didn't mean to do it. The door flung out of my thing. I had packages in my hand. I didn't mean to do it. It was a little nick on their car. They weren't around. What am I going to do? I could leave a note. I'll get that part painted for you if you want. We have choices. Okay. So karma is involved. Some past activity in my body, speech, or mind that I did with my body, speech, or mind planted that seed in my mind, in my consciousness. And right now it's just ripening and somebody opened their door in my car. Right? There's some people I know, they're not disturbed at all by that. It doesn't even faze them. Right? Very fluid mind, doesn't matter. It's not that they don't take care of things, but that just is something they're not going to worry about. Like that. Now your kid gets harmed. Okay, this is the deepest level. Your kid gets harmed. Your partner gets harmed. You get cancer, God forbid. Okay, how do you want to respond? So again, you need to participate and take care. Make sure your child is safe. Make sure they have the components to conduct themselves as an adult in the world and to get out there, and that they have good values, and take care of your partner and your spouse and your home and your. We have to do that. If we get a serious illness, we want to talk to doctors and figure out what we need to do. But how do you want to do it? With intense misery and blame and accusations, you know, yelling and screaming and hostility towards people, and we're going to get them back? Or you're in the doctor's office and there's good patients and there's other patients, right? So it's really about how we want to behave. When we understand emptiness more, it totally subdues that mindset of this resistance against life, this resistance against everything, because you understand I created the cause for this to happen. So think about what causes you're creating in your life. What kind of kindness are you showing yourself and others? We have to create more of that, and just keep poking at your reality. When you get stuck and you're unhappy and something's happening, ask yourself, well, how does that thing exist? What's really going on there? Why am I feeling this way? What's happening for me? Oh, look, there's my self-cherishing. It was all about me. You know, I wanted to go to that restaurant tonight. I thought we were going to eat there. You know, I thought we weren't cooking at home tonight. I thought we were going out. You know, so just notice how you get tweaked. And so we're going to analyze them. We've got, again, back to this person, the fleshy thing and the appendages and the torso. They open this, something comes out. We all have different interpretations of what comes out. So we'd like things to be more pleasant. So, and here's what happens is, based on the fundamental ignorance that the fundamental ignorance in our mind then projects onto that person. And I'll just say that difficult person for you, it projects something wonderful about them and good and easy, or something negative and horrible on them. So we've got attachment, the wonderful, good, wonderful, you know, I like that, I want more of it. And the negative, hostility, I don't want that. So let's explore. What attachment simply does is, based on the fundamental ignorance, that misknowing of reality, KNOW, misknowing of reality from fundamental ignorance, I project, I have suddenly a karmic seed ripening of something positive I did in the past. Karma is a whole intricate other class. It's very sophisticated. Higher level of realization, we need to really understand karma, but we can understand on one level I've got a positive seed suddenly ripening, coming to fruition, something positive I did, said, or thought, right? And suddenly it projects onto this person in front of me, something blissful, wonderful, over projection of positivity, okay? An over elaboration on the person. That's what attachment does. Attachment and desire, one of the three poisons. Poisonous state of mind. It's not, I'm not talking about love. Love is different. Love is wanting someone to be happy. Pure unconditional love is like that. But attachment and desire is tainted and wants something back and wants something for the self-cherishing. So based on that, what happens is, but a positive seed is ripening. So it's pleasant when I experience this person now, but it over elaborates and over embellishes what's really there. I'm not seeing the data, the raw data, and I over embellish. And it's like you just vomited a projected fantasy. And for me, it always reminds me of when I was a kid, I loved the game Candyland. If some of you remember that, I'm really dating myself, Candyland. And there was a kind of gingerbread house on it, I think. And it was, you know, how the icing goes down. So that's your projected fantasy. When you drip that icing of attachment over something, I have no ability to see it clearly. I just see, oh, this sweet, sugary, I want that. I want to run my finger through it. Great. There's my wonderful person. And then we get all involved in that. And it's so funny because we over embellish, their hair is so beautiful and the voice is so lovely and their figure is amazing and they're really beautiful and they're incredible. And I remember Lama Yeshe was one time teaching about attachment with his rosary, his mala. And he said, and this is what attachment does. And there's your wonderful person and they're so beautiful and they're so wonderful and they're incredible. You know, you just choke the life out of them. That's attachment. Right? And they're never going to fit that expectation, never going to live up to it. And we say then we're falling in love. Right? Really, we're falling into obsession. And then later you wake up and the icing dripped off and now you see what's really there and you go, I don't know, their feet smell, their breath smells. They have this funny tick they do with their hand, with their hair that drives me crazy. You see what's there. Now here's what hostility and anger and hatred does. It underestimates what's out there, okay? So suddenly I'm moving along, I'm at a business meeting or I'm driving, whatever happens, negative karmic seed in my consciousness comes to fruition. A negative karmic seed, something negative I did in the past, my body, speech, or mind, suddenly comes to fruition. This person happens to be in my space, and then I project on them, underestimate what's really there. And what it does is it exaggerates all their negative qualities. That's what hatred and anger does. So if I can catch it in my mind and go, okay, that person really seems to respond well to this person. I am not. It doesn't mean it's going to change it right away, your view, but it gives me a little bit of space not to negatively respond. What we want to do is start to hold that negative response. So first, obviously, we protect our body. We're not doing it anymore like kids in the sandbox. The next thing we get engaged is our speech. So that's why I have my little trick to myself. Amy, do not open your mouth right now because I'm maybe going to say something negative. Okay. The last thing we're going to disengage is our mind to find a way to subdue the negative thoughts going towards this person in my mind. Make sense? Okay. So we try our best with that. And it's a process, and I know it's difficult. And then what happens from the path of seeing, we enter path number 4, the path of meditation or habituation. Path of meditation or habituation. And what we're doing is the path of seeing supposedly is very short. You see emptiness directly. Okay? Then you become what's called an Arya being, noble being. You're no longer a sentient being. Sentient being is a being with a consciousness, but tainted consciousness, okay? Contaminated consciousness. I'm not laying a trip on you. I'm just saying we make mistakes. We misunderstand things. Then you become an Arya being, and you have all these realizations really quickly. Realizations of the Four Noble Truths, first thing the Buddha taught, like that. Path of seeing is short, but what happens is you come out of meditation on emptiness, and everything goes back to the way it appeared to you. But now you know. Now you know. And what you do in the path of habituation is you continue a lot of meditation on emptiness to remove subtle obscurations to omniscience. until when you can come out of meditation, then you see the two truths. You see the ultimate reality, emptiness, and you see the conventional reality, the way everybody, all sentient beings experience things and see reality. Okay. And you enter the path of no more learning, and then remove the subtle obscurations to omniscience to become a Buddha. Those are 5 paths to enlightenment. And so what's essential is when you get to that high level and you're able to see the two truths simultaneously, right? So what's very interesting is when, and I think some of this with our teachers, when they see the way, they see the ultimate reality, the emptiness of everything, right? But they also see and can experience the way we see things, but they're not subjected to it. They don't suffer from it. They don't get caught up in their ego and wanting this or that, but they see the way we see things, but they're not living in that reality. But because they see the way we see things with fundamental ignorance, and because they see the utter mistakes we make because of that, right? They have enormous compassion for us. And that's how our compassion grows. When you have those perceptions, when you have those realizations, that's how they really go together. You know, it's like when you see children that don't know and they make mistakes, you have compassion for them. You say they didn't know any better, like that. But you see this for all beings, you know, and then you become a Buddha, and then you have this unlimited consciousness that sees all beings, past, present, and future karma for all beings in every world system simultaneously. That's a pretty big space of mind. Okay, but that's why then we're able to help unlimitedly, like that, from that consciousness, because you know everybody's mind. You know exactly how to advise them what to do. So what I'd like to do, first I want to ask if there's any questions, and then we're going to do a meditation with the 8 verses. Please, any questions about anything I'm mentioning or anything else from last week? Okay, let's do this meditation. I'd just like you to sit comfortably. And this is another meditation from the class that involves the 8 verses. This is something Rinpoche's called in the past the ever-flowing nectar of bodhicitta. The ever-flowing nectar of bodhicitta. And I'm going to share my screen. If you can give me a sharing thing, allow me to share, that would be great. Thank you so much. Okay. So have a look at this for a moment and let me know if you can't see it. Okay, so here's the 1,000-armed Chenrezig. Let me see if I can make this any bigger. Okay, can everybody see it? Let me know if you can't. Okay, on the left side, the 1,000-armed Chenrezig, this is just a line drawing in black and white. Excuse me. This is a Buddha His Holiness is said to be an emanation of. 1,000 arms, which are hard to see, these arms that go around the semicircles. Each arm has an eye, so he can see all the different sentient being realms to help, to reach out. The 11 heads that see all the different realms, like that. And there's a whole, description of this Buddha, Buddha of infinite compassion. This is one form called 1,000-armed Chenrezig, the Buddha of infinite compassion in Tibetan. In Sanskrit, Avalokiteshvara is the name. Avalokiteshvara, as it says down here. 1,000-armed Avalokiteshvara, drawing by Robert Beer. Okay. Now, the normal way, and we don't have enough time to do this, but you can certainly do this at home. The normal way is there's an intro and preparation. Okay. And then it goes into Rinpoche has about how to set your motivation, thinking about other realms of existence and realms that have a lot of suffering. Okay. And then if you look at page 5 on the right side, it comes to this 7-limb practice. It says, reverently I prostrate to Guru Avalokiteshvara. It's a beautiful setup for any daily practice if you want to do. If you say, I don't really have time, but this is going to be my practice, and you're not already doing some other extensive practice, this is a beautiful practice to do every day to build compassion and help with the mind training. So these 7 lines are very important about, number 1, paying homage or respect with prostration. Number 2, making offerings, which is about generosity that creates a flow of Dharma in your life. And this is all done through visualization. Like you say, reverently, I prostrate. It's nice to hold your hands in prostration mudra, Rinpoche says. And you can just read these lines one by one, but think about them. Line 3 is about confession. So if I've done negative things, I want to have a little regret for that, so that I can try not to do it again. Number 4 is really important, rejoicing at the good things that you do and that holy beings do. We don't do enough of that in life, right? Not in an egomaniacal way, in a balanced way, like that. 5 is asking the Buddhas to stay until the end of samsara, till the end of cyclic existence. 6 is asking them to turn the wheel of Dharma, which represents asking them to teach. And 7 is dedication. So it's a very powerful little abbreviated prayer, okay? And then these last couple of lines are about a mandala offering, like you're offering the universe as a symbol of, in ancient days, what you would do to get one teaching. You'd bring your most precious jewel to the teaching, maybe traverse 1,000 miles to get to the teaching. The Dharma wasn't, prevalently given everywhere. Now it is, and nobody's interested. It's really interesting. I'm not saying nobody. I mean, you guys, it's wonderful that you're here, but there's less and less people. We were just talking about this today, a couple friends of mine. It just seems sometimes there's less people and there's more distractions. And so this mandala offering, you'd visualize the universe, say these verses. There's a mudra you can put your hands in, and it's all just a way to set up that practice. So I just want to explain. And I think what you got in your actual materials may be just the verses without the explanation. So I can make this available to Gina, who can also make this available to you, because it's just a little bit more elaborate way of doing the meditation. Then it says at the top of page 6 to make a heartfelt request. Okay, so we don't know about this step much as Westerners. This is about creating the cause. Creating the cause. So requests are important. And here's one that talks about what to request. Precious Guru, grant me the realizations of the path. Wonderful. If you want to recite those lines, you don't know your own request, you can recite those lines, right? But then maybe make requests in your own words of what you need right now. Maybe you need a health-related thing. Ask for it, right? Maybe you need help for somebody else with a health-related issue. Maybe you want your kid to be successful in school, to do well. Maybe you want your center to be flourishing and harmonious. Like, be specific. I have a whole list of requests I do every day. Whole list of requests that I like to do for people, for centers, for things like that, that I believe creates a cause, right? So you can do that during the mandala offering, like if you like. And then you see it says Guru Avalokiteshvara, because you want to think of them inseparable. If you have any specific teacher, inseparable from that teacher or guru, that they're very pleased with the request. You can visualize them in the space in front of you. Okay. You can put them on the crown of your head about 6 inches in height, facing the same direction as you. Okay. So what I'd like you to visualize right now is that 1,000-armed Buddha, 6 inches in height. You can just lightly close your eyes, because I'm going to read these verses and tell you what to visualize. And imagine as if the 1,000-armed Chenresig, but in the nature of light, like a radiant crystal, is over top your crown, facing the same direction as you. He's adorned with beautiful jewels and draped in beautiful silks and cloth. And all he wants to do is help. As best as you can, imagine him over top your crown. And I'm going to read through the 8 verses and just tell you briefly how you can visualize. Determined to obtain the greatest possible benefit from all sentient beings who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, I shall hold them most dear at all times. And I'd like you to visualize at the center of the Buddha over top your crown, okay? He's got a syllable of concentration at his heart, very tiny. And his syllable's Shri, H-R-I-H, like a little radiant seed you can visualize in the nature of light, standing on a moon disk at his heart, like a little moon lying flat. And in the middle is this Shri. And you can just visualize the English letters, H-R-I-H, standing upright. And imagine that blissful white nectar comes streaming out of this, down through your crown, filling your whole body, purifying all obscurations from you having realizations and bringing all your realizations of the whole path to fruition, as each verse. And then each verse we slightly have a little bit, but it's basically very similar. So again, blissful nectar coming down from his heart, cascading like a waterfall through your crown, purifying anything that prevents you from realizing that particular verse. So in this one, okay, preventing you of anything, of any obscurations from all sentient beings like that, of holding them as anything that obscures you from holding them like a wish-fulfilling jewel, it's purifying all of that. So just visualize that for a moment. And also, if you'd like to add his mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om is usually an opener for mantras. Mani is jewel. Padme, the way it's spelled, P-A-D-M-E, but the Tibetans pronounce it Peme, is lotus. Hong is usually a closing syllable like Amen. Om Mani Padme Hum. If you want to recite that while you're doing the visualization, that's fine. You don't need to. You can recite at any pace that you like, right? And in one level, you could think of this mantra as being like the all of the universe is like a jewel in the lotus of my heart. But it means things on different levels based on your understanding. And you can even recite Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, as the light cascades down from Avalokita's heart, from the seed syllable down through your crown, filling your whole body, purifying all obscurations, and bringing all your realizations to fruition. So if we have more time, you can do as long as you like. You can take one verse a day, one verse like that. We're going to go on to verse 2. When in the company of others, I shall always consider myself the lowest of all, and from the depths of my heart hold others dear and supreme. The blissful white nectar purifies all obscurations, especially those that prevent you from holding others most dear. And imagine it bringing all your realizations, especially the loving, compassionate bodhicitta, which holds others most dear, bringing those to fruition. Verse 3, vigilant the moment a delusion appears in my mind, endangering myself and others, I shall confront and avert it without delay. So imagine now purifying, the light rays purifying. Anything that prevents you from considering yourself the lowest of all and from holding others dear and supreme and bringing all those realizations. Verse 4, whenever I see beings who are wicked in nature and overwhelmed by violent negative actions and suffering, I shall hold such rare ones dear as if I had found a precious treasure. So blissful white nectar cascading through your crown, purifying all obscurations, especially those that prevent you from confronting and averting delusions the moment they appear, and bringing all those realizations from doing so. Verse 5, when out of envy others mistreat me with abuse, insults, or the like, I shall accept defeat and offer the victory to others. The light rays purifies obscurations, especially those that present you from holding wicked sentient beings dear, and brings all those realizations. Number 6, when someone whom I have benefited and in whom I have great hopes gives me terrible harm, I shall regard that person as my holy guru. So imagine the blissful light rays from Chenresik's heart, Avalokiteshvara's heart, come down through your crown, purifying all obscurations, especially those that prevent you from accepting defeat, and from holding others, prevent you from seeing beings who harm you as your holy guru, and brings you all those realizations. Verse 7, in short, both directly and indirectly, do I offer every happiness and benefit to all my mothers. I shall secretly take upon myself all their harmful actions and suffering. Blissful white nectar purifies all obscurations, especially those that prevent you from offering every happiness and benefit to all mother sentient beings, and secretly taking upon yourself all their harmful actions and suffering. And imagine it also granting you all those realizations of that insight. Verse 8, undefiled by the stains of the superstitions of the 8 worldly concerns, may I, by perceiving all phenomena as illusory, be released from the bondage of attachment. Again, blissful white nectar coming from Chenresik's heart and the seed syllable down through your crown purifies all obscurations, especially those that prevent you from perceiving all phenomena as illusory, and bringing all the realizations, especially of emptiness, the wisdom realizing emptiness. And you can think, just asking this Buddha on your crown to help you with whatever you need right now. Put it into your own words, something genuine. And think that he accepts your request. Slowly melts from the edges of the visualization of that Buddha on your crown into the center of that visualization, into a radiant crystal drop of light. And imagine that melting into your crown. And that all your obscurations, all your negative karma, diseases, misunderstandings are instantly purified. And just feel all the blessings from his holy body, holy speech, and holy mind. And then normally at the end of the practice, we would dedicate the merit. So I'm just going to do a brief meditation, and then we'll dedicate a little longer right at the end. May all the suffering and causes of suffering of all sentient beings ripen on me now. And may all sentient beings receive all my happiness and virtue. So please relax, and you can slowly open your eyes. I just have a couple more things, and then we'll dedicate. Thank you so much. So to make sure a few things are clear with this course, there's a famous story as well. Like, people ask me sometimes, well, what if somebody was really going to harm people? You can't harm them, and there's the famous story of previous lives of the Buddha, when the Buddha was a great bodhisattva and was on a boat and understood there was a murderer on the boat with 100 people and was planning to kill all the people on the boat. So the Buddha actually killed the murderer, okay? But the main motivation wasn't to save all the 100 people, okay? The main motivation was compassion for the murderer, because of what kind of suffering he was going to create for himself as well. So he had both motivations, for the people, but also the murderer. That's the real heart of the bodhisattva. So I just wanted to explain that. It's a beautiful story, actually. So again, it's all the nature of your motivation, but at our level, we have to be very clear that we're not doing something when we're really angry at someone and saying, oh, well, it's for their own good. You have to be really honest with yourself and authentic like that. And so the other thing is, you can't really get attached. Some people ask me about, well, what if you get attached to developing loving kindness? What if you get attached to developing compassion? What if you get attached to enlightenment? You want to get enlightened, okay? Because there's no way to over-exaggerate those good qualities. They're authentic the way they exist. So, you don't get overly attached. I mean, it's not a bad thing to get attached to, basically, is what they mention. Let's see, I've already mentioned that. And we initially have an entry to the Mahayana path with what's called uncontrived bodhicitta. Uncontrived, we're forcing it, meditating again and again and again. Through that practice, then I have a realization where it automatically arises in my mind, like that wish. And let's see, lastly, karma is very much obviously affected by our motivation. I think I've mentioned that before. And let's see if there's one last couple things I wanted to go through. Yep, I mentioned that. Yeah, I think I finished all that. Great. Okay. Any last questions before we dedicate? Okay, so that's a conclusion of this class, Transforming Problems. Okay. This Sunday, May 15th, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. California time. Okay, we will be on Zoom. I'm going to try to do it in the Land of Medicine Buddha Gompa, like that. Ross, I don't know if you have something on our website about that. I can't remember if you put something on there. Great. We unfortunately tried before another class, but our internet wasn't working. So we're going to experiment and see. I'll check it out and hopefully, and if not, I'll just be here doing it. So it's 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. where we're going to focus a little bit more on these meditations. You're welcome to join. There'll be some discussion like that. And you can come in for any part that you can jump in. And there'll be basically half-hour meditations that I'll guide you through with breaks like that. So do sign up through Gina or get the link or how you want to do it if you want to join. It would be great. And then let me know through Gina of people that want to complete this course for a certificate so we can kind of complete that for you, help you get that completed. That would be great. And in conclusion, I'd really like to dedicate, first I want to thank all of you for joining. I want to thank Gina, Carol, Venerable Carol, Cindy, and Chen Ling Center for hosting. Thank you so much. And I'd like to dedicate the merit. So I'm just going to, I think you have some dedication prayers we can share. I'd like to invest whatever positive energy we've created from this wonderful class. It's one of my favorites, is that we can continue to explore mind training, thought transformation. It's a huge part of the path. It's a very higher level practice. I think we need to do it. I'd like to dedicate to all the people that I know right now that really are having serious health issues. Ross, Joanne, Kathleen, Jody, Venerable Pel Young, Venerable Punsok, Jean, Trish, Norma, Barb, Vanessa, may all these beings, and there's many more around the planet, those with COVID, those with serious illnesses be healed instantly, and may all pandemics stop on the planet and all other diseases and imbalances, body and mind, immediately. May the war in Ukraine be pacified immediately and all other conflicts in general. May we quickly get enlightened to benefit all living beings. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow. May that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. For the long life for His Holiness the Dalai Lama. It was really sweet. Last night I was going to bed and a couple people called me because it was midnight their time. And it was very cute. The first person was my niece, who is married to my nephew, and they live in the Philadelphia area. And she's really funny and she's just got a great mind. And so I get this text from her, happy birthday. You know, it's very sweet. And then I said, and some people had mixed up and thought my birthday was yesterday. So I didn't know if she knew. And I just said, oh, thank you so much. That's so kind. And I said, but it's tomorrow. And she's on the East Coast. So it was like 12:15 on the East Coast. And she said, it is your birthday. She goes, it is tomorrow now, here. You know, it was really cute. So, and then what happened is I had my phone on and I get these alerts when His Holiness is teaching. And I didn't know His Holiness was teaching, and I popped it on and I went to sleep watching His Holiness the Dalai Lama teaching in Dharamsala. It was just great. It was so sweet. So this is long life for His Holiness. Let's say this prayer really thinking of His Holiness. The wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. And for Lama Zopa Rinpoche's long life, you who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. I'd like to thank all of you. I just wanted to make a quick announcement. At Land of Medicine Buddha, we are looking for a spiritual program coordinator. So some of that team will be remote. You don't need to be here and live here. So if you have any interest or if you know anyone, if you can pass the word, I'd be very grateful. And thank you so much. It's lovely to see all of you, and hope to join again together soon at another program.
Thank you, Venerable Amy. We were so happy to have you back teaching with us. And I wanted to end the class by saying, please, please come back. And especially, please, please come back on Sunday when we have our practice day. So we will all be together again in a couple of days. But we're grateful for the teaching. I said when we started, I just thought it was a fantastic pairing of teacher and topic. So thank you so much. And thank you all for being here. And I hope I'll see you all on Sunday.
And I know Sunday also, we opened it up to anyone. So if you know people, they haven't done the module, they're more than welcome to join, because it's really beneficial to do these meditations anyway. So it's a nice little meditation period like that. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and all the information's on the website. And one last quick thing, the meditation that Venerable Amy did to finish the class was sent out with the materials you all got at the beginning of the course. But if you don't have it, or if you need me to resend, I'm happy to do it. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Venerable Amy.
Thank you so much.
You.
Well, everyone.
You.